Good start to the year. First, number 2, public comment. Do we, Raquel, do we have any public?
No, we do not.
Okay. Got it. Moving on to item number 3, approval of minutes of the January 9th, 2023 meeting. I assume everyone had a chance to look at them. They're pretty succinct.
They sure are. I'll be happy to make
Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I have a question on them.
Sure.
There's been some chatter about that CT Examiner article. And
Yeah.
one of the concerns is that we're going to be asking for more money. Should we be a little more detailed about that $5 million and that it's not asking taxpayers for more money, that it's borrowing from another project for the funds once we get the rebates back? Just, I'm not sure of the exact language, but
Yeah.
just so nobody reading it thinks we're going to be asking for $5 million more.
Yeah, I guess we could clarify that. We're going to be going in front of the selectmen probably sometime in February and explaining, what we're asking for and why, and they're already involved, but I think we can clarify that. This was allowed. It was written into the referendum for this express purpose to give us flexibility in how we allocate the money, and we're not asking for any more money, and we're expecting to get, a good part of it back through the tax credit deals.
I presume you can all see my screen with the highlights of the minutes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just thinking to help, outside of the Board of Selectmen, other townspeople who are concerned about the sensational headlines that they're reading and things like the Connecticut Examiner, just to be more clear that it's not us asking for additional dollars.
Yeah, there were also some factual incorrect statements in the exam, obviously, but that's, and I did glance at the Facebook posts, and they, God bless the public, but some of them were misled. So yeah, I guess we can expand on that, but I think obviously these meetings are available. Anybody can watch these on YouTube after the fact, and maybe we need to be a little more broadcast more openly. I don't know how people, how much they want to, look up, follow, watch meetings on YouTube, but it is certainly available to do.
Do you have the language then, Graham, that could be given to make that more clear? I'm just not sure what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it will, which I kind of said that this, we're moving money, potentially asking the selectmen to reallocate some money that was in the referendum from the Polson project to this project to facilitate the project due to the constraints that we're facing with right now. But that but we will have to go to the Board of Selectmen and lay out our case at that time and in the public. And then I believe there's going to be a public vote before we reallocate it. So this is all going to be done in the future. But at the same time, we're working to refine the budget and save money as much as possible by, trying to save, as we normally would, so we can ask for less money. But I do value engineering, and the architect's been working diligently. We've been working with staff to try to reduce some of the site work costs, and all those things are taking place as anticipated. So this is just part of the normal process. We don't know we're $5 million. We're going to need $5 million, and we're going to ask for as little as possible. But we have that flexibility for the referendum.
Graham, is that small red
Yeah.
change capture what you were trying to say?
Yeah,
For the purposes of
exactly.
trying to move something forward.
Great.
And we get to that point, we can go to the source. I thought it was interesting. The Examiner had the article and the source did not. But,
They would love to talk to somebody this week. I was talking to the main writer for Madison for a client last week and just kind of asked about it, and he would love to know who to talk to. And I shared with him tonight's meeting. So we just need to tell him who, and he's willing to publish accurate, helpful updates so that people aren't just reading the sensational headlines of the Examiner.
Yeah, so whether we're ready to, I'll talk to them and, I want to make sure I do it simultaneously with the Board of Selectmen. I don't like to inform the selectmen through the newspaper. So the intent would be, when we get to that point, I'll simultaneously, explain it to the selectmen and then follow it up with the source, with the information to the source. So the selectmen hear it first and then the source hears it, simultaneously, and then they can write the story as they see fit.
Could we just give an update to the source of where we are and not talking about the $5 million if we're not ready to yet, but talk about the fact that we've moved on to this second phase, the budget is, in line with what the referendum was, just to disperse any fears of being $10 million over budget that people now have. You don't have to talk specifically about items that have not gone to the first selection yet.
Yeah, just send them my contact information and I'll talk
Okay.
to them.
Great.
I'm not sure so much of, I almost responded on Facebook, but I thought I held back.
Probably
I'll
wise.
leave it up to Scott Murphy. He's much better at it than I am. Okay, so moving on to I think someone was about to make a motion for the minutes.
I was.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the minutes as written.
with this revision that, I don't know, Adam, was your intent to have this revision formally approved?
If it so pleases the committee, I just wanted to propose something.
No.
yeah.
I think that's a good clarification
Sure, yes.
with this. Yeah, so the motion is with that change. Do we have a second? Sharon, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Beautiful. Moving on to item number 4, architects update.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Jeff?
Justin from Tecton Architects. Thank you. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Good to see everybody. Just a brief update regarding some of the meetings that we've held. We held our working group meeting last Wednesday, as well as our most recent public forum Wednesday evening. That was a virtual meeting, and we primarily went over some of the interior design development or development of the details, including arrangement of curriculum space, storage, finishes, teaching wall, technology, those type of things. The reason why we focused on that was primarily because we have been developing our value engineering and value management plan reductions, as well as taking a crack at making it a more efficient layout that we would like to share this evening, if that's okay with you, Graham. Before I move on to that, a couple of items to note. We have our schematic design review meeting with the State Office of School Construction Grants and Review tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We've been working with Colliers to develop what's called the SDR checklist. It's about a 7-page document where we give a summary of all of the necessary criteria that is part of the schematic design package. We're going to be meeting with the plan reviewer to address any questions, give a brief presentation, and go from there. We're also targeting our regulatory schedule. So we're targeting a February 15th pre-application meeting, as well as an application submission for inland wetlands on March 2nd and Planning and Zoning Commission for March 15th. That's the current schedule that we have from Benesh. Obviously, we have to quickly redevelop the site plan. They've been working on that. We anticipate going over that in detail with this committee at a future meeting, obviously before any of those applications be submitted. So with that, if I can share my screen.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there are a number of things that we want to highlight and go over, but we're just going to share the floor plan that was as updated from the schematic design documents, but did not incorporate any of the value engineering or value management items that we had discussed with you, I believe, the week between Christmas and New Year's, and formally accepted in the subsequent weeks after. So here's the main level that should be familiar to everybody that is on the meeting now. Kindergarten, pre-kindergarten wings, administrative area are grades 1, 2, and 3. Yes, 1 and 2 on the main level, 3, 4, and 5 on the lower level are core spaces, media center, STEAM, art, and music. The reason why we're highlighting those is because we have made some modifications to those areas. But the lower level, grades 3, 4, and 5, our gymnasium, our cafeteria, faculty lounge, kitchen, and loading and unloading area. So I'm going to toggle through the main floor and lower floor plan as we have modified them for this meeting. And then I'm going to go to a couple of the same plans with some of the areas highlighted so that we can discuss some of the changes. So overall orientation and where these elements are in space from a classroom standpoint, administrative standpoint, and special education and resource standpoint are very similar to the original layout. We have developed what we think is an improved floor plan for our core elements. And as we get to the kind of diagram or callouts, we can go over those more in detail. So main level, everything that was on the main level in the schematic design floor plan is also on the main level in the revised floor plan. And the lower level, likewise, grades 3, 4, and 5, our resource, gymnasium, our stage platform area, and our cafeteria are more or less in the same location. So a couple of things to note with this layout incorporates the square footage reductions that were discussed as part of the value engineering and value management process. So we have met our targeted reductions in gross square footage allocations. A couple things that, frankly, we would have addressed or corrected through at the beginning of design development, even if we weren't going through this VEVM process. Reorganized some of our pre-K special locations so that each room has direct access to the outside for natural light. So all 3 of these rooms were in this general location. One of the rooms was not on an exterior wall, so we updated that. We made some strategic decisions with locations of mechanical spaces so that we could right size the kindergarten classrooms so that they are all the same size, as well as the pre-K. So for these guys, the mechanical room for the kindergarten classrooms is here. The mechanical room for the pre-kindergarten classrooms is at this location. So we're not interrupting too much of the classroom space with that move. We shifted the 2 stairs that connect the lower level with the main level. In the previous scheme, these were bump outs. It's a far more efficient use of space if we kind of align them with the general column grid for the building. We've also introduced a mechanical space on both the main level and the lower level to help become more efficient with some of the delivery of the piping. And as we get to the lower level, I'll explain that. Frankly, the big spatial move that we've done is where we used to have the media center in this zone where my cursor is here, which ultimately resulted in a fairly narrow double height space in the cafeteria. We have now shifted our learning stair to the center of the space, moved the media center to where the STEAM and visual arts rooms were, and now have made the STEAM and visual arts rooms flanking either side of the double height space on opposite ends of our communicating stair or our learning stair. This helped make both of those spaces have more direct borrowed natural light from our exterior glazing on both sides of the corridor. It also helps centralize this learning stair so that it's now central to the platform below. And with that, I will go to the lower level. So now this is centralized on the platform. It has much greater opportunity for use and curriculum use, as well as being an appropriate backdrop for that double height space to go from the platform through the cafeteria up to the media center on the upper level. So with this move, by not having the kitchen in this area, we're able to anchor it near the loading area, as well as right size the space to accommodate the equipment that needs to be there. And some further refinement, we have some meetings scheduled to review the kitchen equipment needs. By having this have direct access to the outside loading area, as well as having a custodial space for loading, unloading, and our mechanical room associated with it, we're able to kind of keep all of these functions directly adjacent to the loading area. So with that move of bringing the learning stair into the central space, we're able to grab some additional storage space underneath this area that we can store some of these cafeteria seatings as well as tables and chairs in this area to help facilitate, the different modalities that might exist in this space. We've also addressed some of the storage deficiencies from the schematic design plan as part of this plan by basically tightening up some of these areas here, providing more adequate storage for the gymnasium, the platform, and the cafeteria. The special education and resource and intervention spaces are more or less in the same space that they were before, but we've provided a more efficient layout for them, as well as a more the organization of how some of the building utilities work within the core space is a bit more efficient. Now, one of the moves that we're looking at or we're implementing from a building utility delivery is where in the initial schemes, we had our localized mechanical rooms on both the lower level and the upper level. We are now focusing them on the lower level and making them so this is the level that we don't have in classroom toilet rooms. So we're basically using the space that on the upper level, we have toilet rooms. We're using the space for the localized mechanical rooms. So what this allows us to do is concentrate all the piping that goes to these mechanical rooms on this level. And then as we're delivering the heating and cooling to the space on the upper level, we're just utilizing a local chase, vertical chase at each location. So this mechanical room services both the classrooms that are adjacent to it on the lower level, and also the ones on the upper level. So we built in a mechanical chase here. So we're taking the opportunity to kind of tighten things down from a building utility perspective to hopefully gain some additional economy when we ultimately work through our design development drawings and get our updated cost estimates. So these are things that haven't quite been that were not identified as part of the value management, value engineering process, but it's our normal course of action to try and make the building more efficient and the utility infrastructure more efficient as we go through design development. With that, Jeff, was there anything that I missed in that description?
No, I think you covered all the salient points. Thanks, Justin.
Okay. So with that, I know we just probably threw a lot at the committee. But are there any questions off the cuff as you're reviewing this, or my description of it?
I think it looks great. Question, that with the media room across the hall, so to speak, from the cafeteria, does that help save us some money in soundproofing the glass that was in there?
Yes.
I think that was a really smart move. I think that looks really great. And I love centering the stair in there. I think that kudos, that looks great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, great work, Justin. You guys are doing exactly what we were hoping as you evolved. You save money and, plus I think it's an improvement on the design. So it's very exciting.
Yeah,
I have
terrific.
another question. The resource rooms on that level there, the math and the intervention spaces, is there borrowed light off the gym that they could get from exterior? Doesn't the roof pop up at the gym, or?
So that's where our previous clear story had been in the entire core location. We're actually going to be part of this design is also to implement the clear story in the area that we have this double height space that goes from the media center to the mechanical mezzanine. So one of the things that we are going to have to look at for these spaces in particular, they are landlocked, but we position them in locations that we're going to try and get as much borrowed light as we can through the ends of the corridors as well. And whether or not we have an overhead system, none's contemplated at this time, but we do need to look at these for borrowed light.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments?
No, I love it. I think it's great. Really good.
And one of the things that we do need to vet is to make sure that, the way that we are kind of stacking the mechanical area in this location closest to the service entry, we do need to go through and review that operationally with the district team to make sure that we're meeting all the custodial demands and the space demands for storage, et cetera. So. Okay. All right, with that, I'll stop sharing.
Great. So if there's no other questions or comments for Justin, move on to number 5, the OPM update. Adam, you're up.
So want to go over a couple points. Kind of ties in a little bit of what we talked about before with some of the public commentary, as well as some of the updates that Justin just provided on the design development side of things. So just to kind of recap, there has been some recent targeted interest in the project from a number of different sources, whether it be the typical media or social media, just neighbor outreach, public outreach, emails, that kind of thing. So one of the things that we'll be looking at as a project team is just a quick touch base on reviewing communications and seeing if there's a different way to convey some of the information, so that way the right information is getting out there, as well as being able to receive input in a way that best suits the public, whether that means additional public work session or different modalities of communication. That's the kind of thing we're looking into. We did have a public work session last Wednesday. The designs and progress were generally well received. I think there was only two questions or two sets of questions that came in, and they were fairly straightforward. And it seemed like it was a good. There wasn't a ton of the people online that I recall. There wasn't. It was a dozen or so maybe. I don't know if Justin or Jeff remember better, but
yeah, it was about 12 to 14. A portion of them, those were people that were part of this committee or the BOE or public schools.
Yeah, so part of that is just really looking at, like I said, the communications and things moving forward to ensure that everyone feels like they're receiving information and that they can convey feedback. I did want to recap just sort of where we were at, where we are and where we're going insofar as what decisions were made and clarify some of the things similar to what we just did for the minutes that were revised. So we did have schematic design estimates come in with a reconciled estimate of 56.5 million versus a attendant construction budget of 46.6. So that $9.9 million overrun. Just to clarify for anyone in the public that might be viewing this meeting or attending, nothing has been spent or bought so far on construction. So this is all estimates and an unfinished design. And the intent is that we do these as we go along. So that way we don't get to bid and find out that this beautiful building that was just designed is now so far over budget and additional monies need to come in, or there needs to be, poorly rushed cuts to the scope at the very last minute. So as I said, nothing has been spent so far from a construction standpoint of building the building. There have been about $3 million in value engineering and value management cuts that have been made. The only one of those that impacted the education specifications was the size of some of the perimeter programming in classrooms. That was approved by the Board of Education in terms of a modification to the ed specs, but the kitchen equipment reductions, the elimination of the radiant flooring, and the combination of the first and second grade bathrooms, those were not approved. So that $3 million is above and beyond those additional value engineering and value management items that were not approved. And then there was the $5 million that was referenced earlier. Again, that's part of a town-wide budgetary reallocation. And so to my knowledge, there's no plans for referendum to get additional money from the taxpayers. And the point of some of that reallocation was to look at available grants and rebates and monies that would filter back through the town by keeping some of the scope in play, namely the geothermal scope, which there's substantial potential IRS rebates that would come back to the town, mainly for keeping the geothermal in play. So in order to help facilitate that work, there needed to be some shifting of money in order to pay for the wells such that the rebate and grant could be received later. So that's just kind of where we're at. In terms of where we're going, if you do the math, 9.9 million minus 3 minus 5, there's still a bit of a delta there. And as I've mentioned in prior meetings, part of the design evolution process is understanding what the building needs and getting all the details revised such that the estimates get better and better. And as you saw from the update for design development today from Justin with Tecton, some of the changes that were made are exactly the type of thing that you go through and as you're designing the building to try to better fit things, whether it be moving that stair to reduce the building envelope, tightening up some of the clear story space, better aligning some of the mechanical systems so there are fewer runs. All of this is exactly the type of evolution process that you go from schematic design to design development to construction phase to help ensure that that budget is coming into alignment with what the estimates and then ultimately the bids will develop. So again, nothing has been spent. The town doesn't owe some contractor or Gilbane money at this point because there's a budget overrun. This is part of the refinement process, and so far it's been going well in light of the market-wide and procurement challenges that many other towns and many other projects are facing right now. Fortunately, the town of Madison has gotten into it where it knew what the situation might be going into it, and so it can be addressed now at schematic design phase and not at construction time or bid time. Are there any questions on any of that? But I had spoken with Graham and just seeing some of the communications, and I thought it was important to rehash all that, and then it can be a bit more formalized as opposed to you see a Facebook post or you see a newspaper article and people start talking and asking questions. And really, this group, this body, this is the source of what's correct and what's accurate in terms of decision making, because y'all are making the decisions. So that's where it needs to stem from.
Right. And I was thinking about we probably owe the Board of Selectmen an in-person update and that's filmed, so that's another good way to get the word out. We'll probably, I think we're at the point where we can maybe some, show and update them, just kind of get, and that way the public knows, and we'll do some more, we'll up our public outreach game a little bit further, and we'll do some, more selective direct communications to make sure everyone is aware of what's going on. I mean, we're starting a land use process, and obviously that's a public process also. So they'll be seeing a lot of us. They'll be sick of watching us on the public access channel in no time. So
And there are multiple ways to, even now, to reach out in terms of, there's the attending these meetings, reviewing the meetings online. There's the website that has good information, the town website. There's the SBC email address where the public can submit questions and get that in front of the SBC. So even as is, there's multiple in-person and virtual ways to reach out and get information from the source. So I'd encourage anyone interested in the public to utilize those, and we'll continue to, like Ken said, evolve and improve that moving forward as well.
absolutely. All set, Adam? Ready to move
Yep,
to
you
the
want
next?
to jump into the invoices in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Number 6, invoices.
So before, there's the invoice packet up for tonight. Just before we get to the invoice packet, there is also an additional draft motion I had added that's sort of related to the invoice packet. So I was going to talk about that just very quickly first, if I could. I'll share my screen here. So this was added today after I had communicated a bit with the town staff about logistics and process. One of the invoices for tonight is actually a reimbursement for some printing that the SBC had asked that Colliers helped facilitate. But there wasn't an existing purchase order for it. So I had, in coordination with town staff, drafted this motion basically just to allocate some of the existing printing budget for the project to a purchase order for Colliers. So that way, when we get to design development documents or CD documents, if SBC members want some of the drawings printed or one big size printing that can be shared at town hall or whatever, we have the ways to track that and procure that. So that's what the secondary motion is for, if that's something that the committee would entertain.
So we're ready for a motion. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make it. It's too much quiet here.
Everyone else is muted, Woody. I think that's why.
Okay. Well, we should make a motion to approve the invoice packet on 1/23/23, including invoices from BVH Colliers and Moody's for a total approval of 17,605.52, and to allocate $1,000 of the printing budget to a purchase order for Colliers for reimbursement for facilitating town requests for printed drawings for drawing reviews.
And here's the invoice packets. It's the other topic. It's just up, you can see the breakdown of dollars. Second.
Do we have a second? Is that you, George?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous?
Okay, two birds.
Yep.
So I think that's it for the invoice packet portion.
Yep. Nice double motion there, Woody. I like that. Moving on to number 7, public comments. Raquel, do we have any comments? Do we have any public yet?
No, we do not.
Got it. Moving on to number 8, remarks. One update, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the 8-24 referral, the land transfer. So that's moving, that's another hurdle we're jumped over. So now the listing was moving on for the Board of Selectmen to schedule the town meeting. So that should be happening shortly. Any other remarks? Any comments anyone else like to have?
Yeah, Graham, just a couple items really on lead times. So procurement issues that Adam touched on earlier, and it's a hot button topic. We had been over the last probably 3 months or so, over the last quarter, started to see some of those lead times for generators, electrical switchgear, rooftop units wouldn't apply in this situation, but the DOAs would. Some of the typical longer lead items pre-COVID, a lot of those lead times were starting to kind of come back to earth. They certainly weren't anywhere near where they were pre-COVID, but they were starting to come back. However, I would say over the last probably 3 weeks or so, we've seen a number of our projects experience delays with switchgear and generators, primarily switchgear, whether it be manufactured by Eaton, Square D, or in particular GE/ABB. We have one project that is a comparable size to this one. The generator was released at the end of February of 21, and it's now been pushed out to ship May 31st of this year. So that's 16 months plus shipment from Mexico, plus the time obviously to lace the gear and get it livened up. So just something we're continuing to track, and certainly be working with Justin and Jeff's team as we get a little further along, as they get a little farther along in DD, just to make sure that what they're specing or what they're thinking about specing, we can start to chase down some of those lead times and provide feedback if it happens to be negative. Which especially with some of the air handling equipment, it's odd how Dakin unit may only be 10 weeks and a train unit might be 14 months. There's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason to it. It really just comes down to the specifics of each one of those units, the actual make and type of the breakers that are within the gear, the actual make and type of the automatic transfer switches, and whether those are in-house or sourced. You start to kind of see the web to all of this. So it is becoming a bit more clear. Unfortunately, it's starting to push back out again on a few different items. So just wanted to give an update on that.
Got it. I wonder whether we should have you on the agenda item as a regular schedule item, or not to, I was thinking we wait a little longer. Do you think that makes sense to have you have a formal, after the OPM to have a standing, so you can update us and things like that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Got it. I mean, I appreciate your attending these meetings, so we may as well give you a chance to participate fully. And it does bring up the issue of we'll have to make some decisions about early procurement. I know we're trying to avoid that at all possibility and have a strategy involved. So if we have to do something exceptional, we can talk about it during city.
Yeah, certainly get those wheels going long before we get close to bid. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, great. Thanks, Nick. Anything else? Anyone else would like to make any more comments? Just want to make maybe a special shout out for Tecton for their great job working through the coming up with that.
Absolutely.
Putting the
Absolutely.
D,
Yep.
the
Absolutely.
DD. So
We chose well.
absolutely. Good. I guess in hearing no other comments, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will.
Second, I think Bill. No, well, Bill. Bob acting as Bill. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Aye. Bye. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Gotta make a snowman for